Alright, we're going to go ahead and make another introductory video to Dota. This one is going to be specifically on gold and items. We're also going to have an aside for stats, that way you buy items that are relevant to your character. I'm also going to have my friend Steven play, just so that there's kind of some stuff in the background. So we're going to have the bots kind of derp around and laying, kind of like Crystal Maiden running around circles there. But we'll have Steven here. He can chuckle and be silly. He's going to try to behold the meatball, if he can. But let's go ahead and start working on gold. First and foremost, whenever you start a game, you're going to get 603 gold. If you random, you get a little bit more. If you random and then decide you want a different character, you'll actually end up with a little bit less. But we're just going to say 603. When you open the shop, like I said in the earlier video, for the most part, it's a good idea to just buy all the starting items. What I didn't really explain is exactly how much gold you get for last-hitting things, and what exactly you should spend your items on, or spend your gold on. So, I'm going to take this video and we're just going to kind of go through the shop a little bit. Now, since I'm sticking to the Skeleton King theme, Skeleton King is a strength hero first and foremost, so strength items are typically favored. And second of all, usually tanky items or anything that can increase his raw damage is favored. The suggested items work pretty well. As far as early game and core items go, I can't really argue versus any other characters. Steven, are there really any core items on any characters you can think of that you really shouldn't get?
Yeah, there are a few where sometimes you don't need them or they're unnecessary, but most of the time the core items are correct.
Yeah, so I would say if you're a brand new player, until you feel like you're experienced enough that you can change the setup, there's absolutely nothing wrong with buying the starting items off the bat, then the early items, and then the core items. If you get all those, you're fine. Now the situational items are situational. It really depends on who you're going against. But they are typically listed in order of relevance. So the first item on Skeleton King is a Desolator. It gives raw damage and it gives armor reduction. Armor reduction is a stat that on heroes that primarily auto attack, it increases the amount of damage you do multiplicatively. So for the most part, a Desolator on Skeleton King, there's no reason why you shouldn't get one. A BKB is a situational item for almost every character in the game. BKB, or Black King Bar, is an item that gives a little bit of health through the strength. It gives you some damage, and more importantly, it gives you immunity to most magic effects. Magic effects in this game are basically any skills, and I literally mean any skill. Let's look at Lena here for a second. A BKB would prevent any damage from her dragon. It would prevent the stun and the damage from her light strike array. And it would stop the damage from the Laguna Blade. It won't stop right clicks, which is just auto attacking. But it's an item that's good to buy if your enemy team has disables or they're primarily reliant on their spell damage. It's not a bad idea for Skeleton King, just because it does kind of help fill in a few of his deficiencies. Now, let's go over gold generation. I'm going to cheat a little just so I can jungle a little bit quicker.
My realm expands!
And I'm going to assume that I've done a little bit of laning, so I've used most of my consumables. So I'm just going to go ahead and buy something arbitrary. Let's buy boots, why not?
Yes.
Now, gold is generated passively. You'll get 1 gold every second. I'm not 100% sure if it's exactly that, but it feels pretty close to that. It's roughly 1 gold a second. But you also get gold for landing the final hit on anything. There are a few exceptions, such as like power cogs and certain abilities from certain heroes. But good rule of thumb, if you get the last hit, it explodes into a shower of gold. So I'm jungling right now. Getting the last hit on these jungle creeps gives you gold. It's slightly random, but in general, it's plus or minus about 5 or 6 gold.
Submit to the Empire of
You'll get that Sunstrike eventually. But gold is generated significantly faster by getting the final hit on something. So, small camp right here gave me about 23 per creep.
King moves.
Not too bad. Now, in the jungle specifically, the harder the creep, the more gold it will give you. So like this big guy right here, I think he'll give about 90. Plus or minus a little bit. He gave 78. Okay, that's not too bad.
Death tax.
But if I say head to a lane, which is down here, Linda's having a little bit of fun down here. If I head to a lane and start getting the last hits on creeps, it's a little bit harder to do, but you tend to take a lot less damage, mainly because your friendly creeps will take the damage that you normally would if you jungle. She's kind of stealing some of my hits.
It's half done.
She doesn't like me getting last hits. There we go. 44, that's not too bad. And then if you kill a hero, you also get money. I didn't get the last hit on that hero, but I got assist gold.
Travel my bones.
So long story short, you get gold for basically last hitting anything. You also get gold for sitting around doing nothing. It's not much, but it's more important that if you're going to be playing Skeleton King or anything of the like, to get as many last hits as you can. You're not going to be able to jungle early because, well, the jungle creeps are all attacking you. You need to have enough sustain where you won't die in the jungle. But the reason gold is important is because of items. Leveling up does increase your power, but items also increase your power. Some characters don't necessarily need items, others are very heavily dependent on them. Skeleton King is heavily dependent on items, so getting gold is easily the most important thing that you can possibly do. Alright, so that creep gave me 103. That's not too bad. In fact, that's quite a lot. But you also notice that the other creeps in the camp, which are much weaker, don't give nearly as much. Each camp gives roughly about the same amount, and creeps in lane will give you about 40 to 50 every time you get the last hit on.
Your middle tower is under attack.
Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and head back to base, and I'm going to start explaining a couple more of the items, specifically for Skeleton King. I'm also going to go over stat budgeting.
Your middle tower is under attack.
Now, items in this game are all over the map. They can give you stats, they can give you abilities, they can give you unused items. There are quite a few different things. Skeleton King's items are not complicated. Only one of them that you typically will buy has an on-use effect, and that is the Armlet of... I'm just going to say Armageddon because that's what it was called in Dota 1. So I'm going to give myself a little bit of gold. And this does not work in actual games. If you try and do that in actual games, it doesn't work. One of the core items on Skeleton King is called the Armlet of Armageddon.
Killing spree.
Gives you a decent amount of passive stats, but when you turn it on, you can either click it or press whatever it is bound to. So I have it bound to 2. What it'll do is it'll give you 31 damage, 10 attack speed, and 25 strength. But it will drain your health. It's not a huge amount of health, but it's something you can't just leave on. The reason this is a good item for Skeleton King is because of Vampiric Aura. It gives him lifesteal. So he does more damage, he gets more lifesteal, he can out-lifesteal the life drain. So it's one of those items that's pretty core on him. And this will be one of the major items that you build. You'll want to get boots first, but afterwards the armlet is a very, very solid second choice.
Well begun. It's half
If you can
done.
make it to the late game, because again, these are all situational or luxury items, then good rule of thumb is to just buy these items in order. I'm not going to go over quite a lot of it, but it is just something you need to be aware of. Now, Assault Cuirass is a unique item, and the reason being is that it requires quite a few different items. These are all the items that it requires. But I can't just straight up buy this item, because it requires a Hyperstone. And the
Middle is
Hyperstone,
missing.
I cannot buy it. If I attempt to buy it, the mini-map right here will actually ping.
I return.
A Hyperstone
Nary
is
a
an item
mark
that can
upon
only
me.
be bought from a secret shop. Which means if you want to buy the Hyperstone, you have to physically go right
Your
here.
top tower is under
Alright,
attack.
so I'll go ahead and walk there and have Skeleton King
Travel my bones.
followed. If I can
Your
do this
top
right.
tower is under attack.
Maybe not. Ah, there we go. No, I goofed it. But I'll have to go to the secret shop to buy this item. And there are many items that require the secret shop. They will have a red dot in the lower
Missing
left-hand
top.
corner, and the text will say requires a secret shop. Now that I'm there, I can buy it. Not exactly sure why this is called the secret shop, but it's just a shop that's somewhere else. There's two on the map. There's one where I currently am located, and then there's another one on the other side mirrored
Your
where it
middle
currently is.
tower has fallen.
Simple as that. Now, the secret shop doesn't sell the items at the spawn. So even though I can purchase the items, they won't go into my inventory. So I will have to go back to spawn.
Yes.
But this is one of those mechanics that many new players,
You
it's a
have done
little
better to
weird
prove
because
yourself in
most people aren't really
All the
used
good
to
scraps of
having
iron
multiple
you
shops that you can buy items from. And I don't blame them. When I first started playing this
Your
game, it was a
middle
little
tower
confusing
is
myself.
under attack.
But the great thing about items is that since I have bought all the components,
With the
it
price
automatically
and
will
more.
assemble it for me. Automatically. Alright. A few more things before I go ahead and wrap this up. If you buy anything that can be purchased from your main shop, so let's just say I buy a Desolator. I don't actually have the Desolator on me. This is in my stash. Okay. And the stash is kind of like an invisible storage house somewhere in your spawn. You can tell a courier to bring it to you, provided you have one. That's this guy low right here with the goggles. You can tell him to bring items to you by pushing this button right here. Okay, there's a series of
This
3
will
buttons in the
leave me
lower right hand
skint.
corner. There's one that looks like a donkey. If it's a flying courier, it'll be a donkey with wings. And what that does is it makes you have control of the donkey. The donkey can either go back to base, go to the secret shop, it can return items, and that'll actually bring items back into your stash. It can bring items to you. This button right here is also
Double
supplemented
kill!
by this button right here. It looks like a little backpack pointed into a person. And then it has a third button which can only be used if it's a flying courier.
Double kill.
And it will cause them to sprint, which is nice. It just makes them run really fast. You can also manually control the courier. That's good for situations where you want to do something complex with it, but there's no real reason in an actual game to actually control him. Alright, final thing I'm going to do is I'm going to show you the side shops, because it took me a little while to even understand that there was a side shop. And secondly, I didn't even realize what all it had. So I'm going to teleport to the top lane.
Never cross me.
There are side shops in both lanes. There's one right here, and then in the polar opposite side of the map, there's another one. The side shop will sell a lot of items. It won't sell everything, but it will sell nearly everything that the main store has, and it'll actually
Killing
sell
spree!
2 of the secret shop items. It will sell actually it'll sell 3.
Is under attack.
You can't kill me, I have my ult, so keep doing that.
You can't kill what's already dead
Okay.
without rising.
But there's actually two.
Once is never enough.
There's actually 2 pages on this. So please keep in mind, when you first start playing this game, if you have a little bit of time, go ahead and look at some of the items here.
The grave.
It says a lot of items. Alright, and with that, we'll go ahead and cut it off here. I'll do stats in the next. They really don't like me. Alright, I'll see you next time.